Welcome to Trekkie and Beyond, a Star Trek podcast. I'm Anika.
And I'm Andrea, and welcome to episode 8 of season 5 of Discovery. We're almost there, guys. In this episode, Labyrinth is taking us back to the action. We have no way mission, we have a mystery, we have an actual clue, and seeing someone find it. We have some Breen action. We have a cute librarian. And then we have Mole being Mole and understanding, look, it don't matter where I am. I'm going to take charge and I'm going to be in charge. And I'm going to look out for my man. That's why we love Mole, because she respects and loves her man. And he respects and loves her back, even though he's dead. So let's get into it. Initial reactions. Monica, what did you think?
So I know you're going to talk a lot about Mole, so I'll talk about the other side of the story, which I really connected with, and that is the really profound storyline between Book and Michael and this away mission. I learned maze, and the library was sort of like a museum, but there was also intertwined in this a lot of self-reflection. There were a lot of metaphors and really a progressive discussion about diversity and cultural perspectives that I'll talk about in a little bit. I found this episode just deeply enriching for me, and I enjoyed watching it. What about you and Mole?
So I'm actually going to go to Book and Michael real quick, just because. So, throughout Discovery, there have been multiple love stories between captains and like other people. So in Discovery itself, we've seen Michael fall in love once, and horribly. We've seen her fall in love with Book. We see other relationships in this series between Saru and Trina, and then we saw in Strange New Worlds, we saw different relationships there. When I say, and I think I've said this a couple episodes, I think the last episode, episode 2 ago, when I say the love between Mole and Lark dwarfs all the other relationships for me, it dwarfs it, because, and granted, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a healthy love. Like, I'm going to go ahead and say it, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a healthy love, because their love is subjective to the people who are in it. But it's weird seeing them. I don't like, because I'm comparing their relationships to like Mole and Lark now. It's like I don't see passion even with Michael and Book in the way, and it's like I saw that before. Like in season 4, all I saw was like the passion between, and like season 3 and 4, yeah, all I saw was the passion between Michael and Book. I guess I saw that between them. I saw the heat, like the little how they looked at each other, what they felt for each other. And just seeing a couple episodes of the way Mole and Lark interact, it's like, wow, y'all just dwarfed all of the relationships. And just seeing how after his death, how much she's like, how far she's willing to go to bring him back and to keep an entire species in check to run for her man. It's like, oh crap. Like, you are setting the stage. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy. But Mole, if you ever want someone to ride or die for you, Mole is that girl. You want her. You want that love. And I love it. What can I say? I like a bad boy. So, so that's my initial reaction about them. Their love is beautiful. Doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy or safe, but it has this beauty of like just their love is innocent for each other. It's like that's what they are. They love each other because of their flaws, and it's just so beautiful, and I love it. I loved the librarian. I'm very shocked that I loved her. She was like a breath of fresh air. She was adorable, and she, even when like Michael was sort of being just a slightly like rude in the sense like, hey, we need to rush this along. She's like, okay, we can talk as you're coming down, and it was just like I love you. Oh, we're gonna put them in our dungeon. Just kidding. We don't have one. And I want to see someone cosplay as her. I want to see this character again. I thought she was adorable, and I'm glad that she was in this episode, and I hope she survives. So those are my initial thoughts. So going into the deeper dive into the critique of this episode, it's basically starting off of Mole promising Lark that she's going to fix this, that she's going to bring him back. And we see a little bit of a flashback to the last episode of like them talking about letting Mole go with the Breen, how Book doesn't want this to happen. Again, Book, she is not your sister. She's not your family. Let it go. But what did you think of the opening scene of like that little flashback that we got?
Remind you that is real, that the current state for Lark is that he's lying down under a blanket, he's not moving, and she's grieving for him. And she's grieving in front of hundreds of people that she doesn't know, and that's the Breen. And it's immense pressure because like she is kind of like a lone wolf in this situation in which she's the outsider into this newish cultural dynamic for her, and where does she find her place? And that's what you see as she's hovering over him at first, and then she steps back and you look around and it's like, oh, there's no one here that looks like me. And what am I going to do here? How am I going to make sure I survive? And then how do I bring my man back? And that's really the journey that her character takes in, I think, the next few episodes is hook or crook. I'm in it. Let's just do this because there's no way I can't go back. It's only moving forward at this point.
It was very heartbreaking almost, but like beautiful in a way, because we know why. Like in the beginning of this episode, you just think they're out here being bad for the sake of being bad. We like when we meet Mole and Lark, we think that they are just like these two Bonnie and Clyde, just having fun, killing for the sake of killing, stealing and robbing anyone who they want to for the sake of it. And then like we are finding out that she's trying to keep her man alive. They're trying to keep each other alive. And while technically it's like the almost quote unquote failed last episode, it's like this episode, this like the opening scene was like, we're almost there. We're almost there. Like the blood, like the bounty on their head is almost gone. Like they have promised. She's like, I finally found us a way out. I know you're dead, but I'm gonna bring you back. I'm gonna fix this. It was like heartbreakingly beautiful because like now, I think I said this last episode. It's like when she lost like the one thing that was sort of keeping her sane, that's keeping her like the one thing that was sort of keeping her like on track, and he's gone. And if she can't bring him back, I don't even know what's going to happen to this world. Like it's going to go crazy. And so we see, while we see a lot of strength from her in this episode, you're still seeing her grieve and like trying her hardest not to like break down. And that actress did an amazing job of like every time she spoke, it was just, you could tell she was like almost fighting back tears. At least for me, it felt like she was fighting back tears. And she was like, I'm going to stay strong in front of these people who don't respect me, but like I'm going to make sure I bring my man back. And it was like heartbreakingly beautiful to see what she went through this episode. I loved every scene she was in. She just rocked my world.
I feel as though Mole, Michael, and Book were on a similar type of like, oh, they're learning about themselves in this episode. And I love the title of this episode. I just want to mention this before I forget. But I feel like there's puzzles for those three main characters that they have to figure a way in and out of in this journey.
And it's very interesting that it's called Labyrinth because everyone was finding themselves.
Yes.
In this episode in some way, shape, or form. We saw Rayner sort of like find himself a little bit and become more of a discovery type person in this episode. We saw Michael find herself. We saw Book find a little more piece of him that we're discussing a bit. We saw Mole try to find her way out of the situation, and she did find a way out of a situation. So you're right. The title of this episode really does work well with what's going on with each person independently. But as we are going to deep dive into this episode more, they are at the next location for the clue, which is the Eternal Gallery and Archive of that's like it's like their Library of Alexandria. It's a huge place where all this knowledge resides, but it's like surrounded by fire, which is why I'm calling it the Library of Alexandria. Sorry for people, um, but it's like it's hard to get down there. You just can't get there. Like you have to be shown a way in, and then it's very the librarian is very funny. It's like we're not responsible for any damage, death, maybe that may happen, and it's like they all look at each other as she's saying it with such a smile, which made me think at first she was a recording. And then you meet her and you're just like, oh no, this is not a recording. This is how she speaks. And I sort of love her for it because she's so matter of fact. And it's like, for her, this is every day. You want to get here. We're not responsible for, and that means someone has died. Someone has been maimed. All of these things have happened because you only have warnings because something already happened that requires the signs. There's a reason why every sign exists because people weren't listening. And so you see the Discovery crew sort of just like, where are we going? That this is a warning to go. And you're going to a peaceful place. Like you're not going to a planet that wars. You're not going to a planet that's like fighting. You're going to a library to learn. And it's also, we have like a beautiful moment where she's like, we see that there's a Quajon on your ship and we have something from their planet that we think with now more than ever would be very important for them to like see and explain to us what it is. And it's great that Book gets a real reason of being on this mission. I thought of you, Monica, when he was beaming down this time when he was going onto the library because like he actually has a reason to be there. He's not just showing up randomly. She specifically asked for the Quajon. But I really did enjoy her, and I enjoyed the first process of them getting to the library. Did you have any like thing about that?
Yes, because Book also helped lead them there because he used his uh, telekinetic ability to read the library card, right? So he placed it on his forehead, and then he was able to think about and know that there is in this radiation filled area that is going to be a bumpy ride, and this is a library card. It starts with eternal. I'm not quite sure. He said he wasn't quite sure the rest of it, but he was able to help them learn more about that clue to take them there. So it's interesting how that folded in. It seems as though this library also moves a lot to protect this rich archive of artifacts, books from all over the universe, galaxy, and beyond, including the Breen's artifacts. So it's important to take note of that, like, as you mentioned, this is the Alexandria, but it's massive. So they're trying to also, I think they purposely chose this location to also ensure that it's a safer place, like lots of security, basically, around them. Michael wanted to get straight to the point and not listen to that disclaimer because the Breen is in chase behind them. But I think as part of that orientation, there is this whole like, oh, this is what you need to do to ensure a smooth, safe ride. But there's just a sense of urgency. I also appreciate the fact that the library also scanned the Discovery ship. So it wasn't just like, oh, your Federation, we're good to go. It's like they did a little research too. In that split moment in which they were in orbit, they found out that there was a Quajon on board, and then I guess looked in their database to find that connection there. And then that takes us on to like two missions once they get into the library. A mission for Michael to continue to find out this clue, and then like another, I guess, C story at this point, for Book to find out about this artifact that was left behind, which they unveiled to be a root from his culture from Quajon. And it looked like two people It was so cute. Inside of a authentic piece of wood that looked like a capsule, and so it brought him to tears because it's it's a physical item that's like natural to his planet, and so that's just it. It's a root. And it seems like the culture is really based on this, like this kinetic, this, the touching of items and the synergy and roots throughout. And roots can also talk about like, or showcase connections between families, like a family tree and the roots. And so it was just, it was symbolic. But within that, I was thinking about really how this library has collected this item, but decided to give it to him
Mm-hmm.
so that he can use it. And that's a big debate these days about whether museums, archives, galleries, libraries, so forth, can keep artifacts that are not from their culture but was given to them, or if they should return it to the original, the original
Original culture
species,
that,
right?
yeah, that it belongs to.
Right. And that was a big running theme also with the Black Panther, the original Black Panther movie, right? So it's this whole like cultural dynamic is interesting to me. They could have been like, oh, this is our archive. You can look, don't touch, or use the white gloves to touch it. But she told him to bring it back and tell him a story later. I thought that that was just an interesting connection to like where we are in like cultural competence these days and all the current discussions about that.
Because it's very because yeah, she was like, so it also makes me wonder, did she give it back to him because Quajon was destroyed? Because like it goes to the question of, if it was never destroyed, he would have no need for those roots. He wouldn't have come to tears seeing them, because the world is like, oh, we have thousands of those back on our home planet. So it's like, I wonder, did she do that just because I thought it was a really big thing and a good thing to pass it along as well. But it made me wonder, did you do this out of the goodness of your heart, or did you do this because the culture was destroyed? And technically, if he grew those roots, you could get some new roots back. Like down the road, like when the next little spawn happens, they get some seeds from it. So it's because I wasn't expecting her to say that he could have it. Until like the world and universe is safe, keep it somewhere that can keep it safe. But like taking it onto the Discovery when the Breen are trying to track you right now may not be the best thing. Or like, hey, I mean, I know this is an episode. There's only so much. We're in a very limited time. Maybe find a Quajon that is settled on another planet and give it to them to like plant. Because like you live in space, like you. I know they all live in space, but like you specifically, Book, live in space. Like you don't live on a planet, so it's like, I'm thankful that you gave it back to him. Like you gave him a piece of his culture back, which is very beautiful and needed. But like, in my opinion, Book may not be the best person. Like, it's great that he saw that as a piece of Quajon still alive, and it can be regrown somewhere. I personally wouldn't have taken it. Like, look, we're in the middle of a war, about to be. I'm gonna hit up a Quajon that I know survived, because I've been working with Starfleet to put like people displaced. I'm going to have you send this to them, and they're on the planet, and they're going to grow and cultivate it and like grow it, because we're not going to have a Saru thing here where like your whole where this tree, this last tree of, like, literally this is like one of the last two tree roots of Quajon living on Enterprise. It should be where all Quajons could enjoy it. Like how in the beginning of season 3, um, the Enterprise bridge crew were sitting under that tree on Earth because it was something they remembered. It's like, this doesn't just belong to Book, it belongs to all Quajons. So that was like my thought about it. It was like, I'm glad you were willing to give this up, but Book, I don't think right now you're the best person for it, unless you're like going to go live on a planet and cultivate it, because Discovery keeps getting shot at too much.
So after watching this episode, I was thinking, oh my goodness, I hope they replicated it. I hope that they like took a model of it, took lots of pictures and some cell samples or something. I also noticed in this episode she mentioned that he Book is one of a few Quajon still alive. So
Yeah.
she didn't say the only, which
Mm-hmm.
makes me think, okay, because it seemed like for the last few seasons he was the only one. So like there's immense pressure, but to know that there's possibly others out there, that makes me feel better. He always feels like he can like outwit and survive, and so I'm sure he thought it's better in my hands, and probably at that moment he was just like, oh, this is just a piece of home.
Yeah.
Like I can't even imagine if Earth exploded and then like I was the only Earthling out there left. Like, oh, I miss oranges or strawberries or whatever. Like,
Mangoes.
oh, this is the only strawberry left. Oh my goodness, not gonna share this. So yeah, so it was that dynamic that I really liked about this storyline.
Yeah. It was still a beautiful moment. It was still a beautiful moment. So I'm glad that he has something tangible, because maybe he'll jump off a mole because he has something actually tangible that belongs to who is an actual Quajon. Like like I guess maybe I would feel different if Mole was Quajon, was from Quajon, was a Quajon, but she's not. And this is something from the planet that he can physically touch, and I'm glad he got that this episode. So one of the main story plots of this episode is Michael being in a trance-like state after touching a drawing inside of a book, which, as someone who loves to read, that is freaky. Because it didn't even look like the thing she touched was real. It looked like someone literally drew this in a book, and she just touched the drawing of the library card, I believe. Um, and she ends up being in this trance-like state. And Discovery Crew doesn't know what's going on. Book has a moment. He's like, "Well, I'm going in there after her," and it's so funny because like I knew the moment he said it, it wasn't going to work, and he went to go touch the thing, and nothing happened. It was like, oh, anticlimactic. Like you thought you were about to collapse, and nothing happened. Ha 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 ha. But Michael is in this state of another like way of proving herself to the people who hid the clues that like she can find it. And it's very interesting because she has three she takes this into three different ways eventually, and the first two end up being completely wrong because she tries to think of it like herself, how she would do something, or someone's a nurse, like she thinks of the most logical ways of trying to solve the clues until she's sort of told by Dr. Derek's mindscape program, who looks like Book because she has him on her mind. It's like you have to prove yourself to these people. Like anyone can solve a puzzle. That doesn't mean you're worthy of the prize at the end. And honestly, it made me think about these other episodes because literally this has been a puzzle and this has been a test, but it's been a test of logic, it's been a test of wills, or brute force. Because let's be honest, every clue that they could have gotten before this could have been taken with just brute force. Even the one where Hugh had that thing inside of him, had the trill inside of him. If they just found out where it was, they could have just shot him and then shot all the things and found it. Like you didn't have to prove yourself, like that you're a good person, so to speak. And so it was like very telling that the last clue you had to prove you were a good person, that you weren't going to like use this knowledge for evil, or you were going to die trying to get it, which is very interesting because that would have told me don't get it. Because I would have been like, oh, Mole or Breen would have never been able to force themselves to get this last clue, you know?
Mm.
So it's like, well, then just don't go after it, because if you have to be a good person, quote unquote, to get it, just don't get it. Because the other people after it weren't, they're not good people. So that was my initial thought, but I know that like they'll just probably force someone to get it. Either way, people will just keep dying until they got what they wanted. But what did you think of Michael's scenes?
But did you really have to be a good person or just be self aware? Like, just have this level of reflection to know that it's important to be aware of your faults and to have fear, but be able to make. I don't know. I didn't think that she had to prove that she can make good decisions. But maybe that's just the way I was looking at it.
You're making a valid point. But in that case, it still means that like anyone could have gotten it. Even an evil person can be aware of their faults.
Right.
So it means they weren't smart.
Yeah, that's why I'm a little puzzled by the puzzle. But
Yes.
before we dive deeper in that, I just want to say that David Elijah, who plays Book, at first when I saw him in the gray gown, I was like, where are you going? But then later on, I made the connection like, oh, all the librarians are wear that gown. And so it's not really him. He's just in that uniform.
Mm-hmm.
But he was carrying that role.
He was.
And did a really good job for me to believe it's not really him, but the like a hologram, but like in a physical state of basically the programmer, the librarian who created this, of like to ask, to really give hints but not really give the answers to the questions, but string that person along in their own self exploration of how to solve this.
Because yeah, you're right. She did have a moment of self-reflection, and he did like help her along. He didn't really answer yes or no. He was just like, "What do you think?" And he just kept letting her try whatever she thought of, even though even though he knew it was wrong. But
that's why she said, "I wish my brain picked Tilly."
Yes, but even in that case when she said that, it still would have been the guy in Tilly's body.
Right.
But to your point, now I'm like, because I never viewed it that way. Now I'm just thinking like anyone can have a moment. Mole could have had a honest, true moment of self reflection, but it didn't mean she was worthy of the clue. So I'm gonna respectfully hope you're wrong. Not because it's not a good, because I do think you're correct. I just want to hope you're wrong, because that means anyone can access the clue. Because I can be like, villains have moment of self-reflections. I can know everything I'm doing is wrong and still do it. That doesn't mean I'm worthy of the last piece of the clue. But I did think it was very interesting, and I did love seeing more of the library throughout Michael's like trying to figure. I like how she figured out with the sand of like which way she went, how to make sure she wasn't going down the same road twice, and then her like sort of opening up about her feelings for Book, and just like where they're at and how she doesn't really know how to talk to him, and it's just they feel stuck. Also, but she also understands that he went through something traumatic, and that's why he did what he did. So it's a lot to reconcile, and there's a lot to build when you have such an abrupt sort of ending. So I enjoyed it. What about you?
I enjoyed it as well. It's funny, a few episodes ago, I talked about like, oh, this season, everyone gets an away mission with Michael. You get an away mission. You get an away mission. You get an away mission.
We're making it rain away missions.
And this time, Avatar, Book, and Michael, like, there's a lot of like, it's the conditions within that dialogue and that path that they walk through to determine if they should look at the card catalog or not, and so forth. So it was just very interesting to me. This could have evolved in lots of different ways, but I appreciate how they showed us this scene.
On the other end of this episode, while the crew is trying to figure out how to wake up Michael and keep her safe, the Breen show up to the library. And they, while the librarian is technically neutral, they have ways of handling when two different fractions on different opposite sides of like the war or the law interact with each other. They have ways of handling it, and it's very interesting to see how she spoke to him. Like, if you don't, like, she was like such like a, almost like she was talking to like a pre-K kid. If you don't stop, mister, you're going to be in trouble. And it's like, your access has been revoked. And of course, the Breen did not take that well. And they decided they're going to start attacking the library to get in. And because their shields are up, Discovery crew can't get out. And we see that Rayner has to, like, even though he's not acting captain on the ship, he's in charge while they're down there, while they're in the library. And he's like, all right, well, look, if we can't figure this out in this allotted amount of time, we're just going to have to risk it and take her, tell them to put their shields down for like a split second for us to get out of here and get back up to the ship and gone. Because he understands with his personal connection with the Breen that, like, they're not, like, there's no reasoning with them if they're not getting their way. We've already seen this Primarch wants to fight. He only cares about getting to the throne. He now wants this clue that Mole has told them about, has told all the Breen about, that can create life, and she only wants to use it to bring Lark back, which is like where the love part, where her crazy in love part is the stupid part, because you should have stayed with Starfleet, because they probably would have brought Lark back for you without risking lives. Mole, like, I'm so sorry. This is when love makes you do stupid things. Because the Breen, the enemy of your enemy is not your friend in this case. Not with the Breen. Or at least with this current Primarch who's in charge of the ship that she's on. And we see that after Michael passes the test and wakes up and has everything that she needs, they're like, all right, we have to get out of here. Really interesting seeing Mole on the Breen ship, because it's hard to read it's like we got used to Lark without his helmet, but seeing all the other Breens, it was sort of hard to tell them apart, because it was like, wait, who is talking now?
Yes,
like, but two, it was, those actors really had to use their body language to like portray how they were feeling. And you were seeing when she was talking, you could see the way some people stood or reacted or hesitated and didn't act, that she was bringing people onto their side because she was respecting their culture more than someone from their culture was respecting their culture. Yes. And respecting their words, because Michael got him to like agree on one of their terms, that if they give them the clue, you will spare the library. And the Primarch goes against that. He goes against one of their own, one of their things that they do. Like, this wasn't like a Starfleet parlay, because I can't think of the exact word, but like their version of parlay. It was like, if you do this, it's like, on my honor, I won't. Yeah, their oath. And he reneged on that. And it was like, you were seeing it with the other Breen and the way that they reacted, the way they turned their heads, like, you can't fire on the library. You already said you wouldn't on your oath. What is going on? And then that opened the door for Mole to like step in, because she was respecting their culture more than the Primarch was. What did you think of like her scenes of like basically in like 2-3 hours getting all of their like support?
Yeah, so circling back to the fact that the library also has the Breen's artifacts. So, like, firing on them also means potentially destroying their artifacts as well. And they're part of like a collective. That's the reason why they wear the same uniforms. They like to have synergy together. And then as soon as she attacked the Primarch, I was thinking, oh, it's a mutiny! It's a mutiny on the other side! And so it's once again, it's like all of these characters just like going rogue, but doing it for what they believe is a good decision to make on behalf of a bigger picture, right? And so this uh, she noticed that I think she noticed she had an ally and one
Mm-hmm.
of the Breen, and thank goodness he helped support her in the end. But you're absolutely right. It was hard to tell them apart. The only way I could tell was really the cape
Mm-hmm.
for the Primarch. Other than that,
And then also, I will say the one negative thing about Mole taking over for me in this episode was I feel like it should have happened next episode. According to the way that I guess the episodes were set up, it looks like it's is literally picking up exactly where the other one left off.
yeah.
And so it's been a couple of hours. Like I'll give them 12 hours max because she's still standing in the same spot she was when she got onto the ship. She's still in the chains. She's still sweating. Like, you mean you tell me you lost everything? Like, you went from having the clue that could make you guys the rulers to your crew not caring that you died in 12 hours?
But also remember that he did not like that Mole spoke out of turn
That's
to
true.
the rest of the Breen crew. And I think he had his feelings hurt
He did.
and he felt upstaged. He was pivoting and didn't think that she had it in her to
Yeah.
attack him.
And if we know anything about our girl Mole, she got it in her. She will do what it takes to save her man.
Yeah, quick question about the Breen. I'm surprised they had their helmets on when they're together. I would think whether it's Lark laying down or they're in a force together that they could have been more comfortable without their helmets. I thought they only wore their helmets when they were around other civilizations. That at least that's what I thought I heard from Lark. Like this is how we truly are, but to the outside we wear these helmets.
Well, maybe it's because of her, because Mole was there. Maybe they didn't respect. Maybe they didn't view her. Maybe next episode they'll take him off. Also, probably cost money. But to your actual point, maybe it's because they don't view her as worthy enough for them to take their. Even though she's Lark's wife, she doesn't. They don't view her as one of them. Because technically, she's not. She's not Breen. She could be a Breen's wife, but that does not necessarily make you Breen. Genetically. Culturally, I will stay off that topic. But
yeah, because that would help differentiate.
Yeah. Hopefully they all don't look the same under the helmet too. Like, let's just please give us something, help us out. But then we come to sort of the last scene with the Discovery. Before they jump away from the Breen, before they're able to get onto the ship, and right before the Breen's like, hey, still fire on them, we're gonna destroy the library. Michael puts the clue together. And I just have to say, I'm tired of the big reveal of the pause. Okay, are we ready? Let's put the clue together. Why was she not already on the bridge putting the clue together? You guys were literally in a war. The Breen's right there. Every second counts. Were you going to jump away and then put the clue together? Literally, wherever you jump to, the clue should have been there. Hey, pop this in. Figure out where we're going while I do this. It just seemed like the urgency wasn't there with the Breen being exactly there. And then even when she was holding off the Breen, was like, look, I'll give you the clue if you promise on your oath not to attack the library. And when Tilly came up, when Tilly got the pieces and brought it back, it was like, oh my God, we're doing it. Just throw that thing on there, okay? We're wasting seconds. Who knows when the Breen's going to come back onto the screen? You don't have time to feel the emotions. Do it. And so they figured it out. Michael now has sort of a clue that the Breen doesn't have outside. She learned in her little map of how to get further in to find the thing that brings life. But it was still just rush, girl. You ain't got time to feel the gravity of the situation. You can feel the gravity of the situation when you survive this. But we see that they sort of tricked them in the way that they jumped away. They made them think that they were destroyed, in the way that they escaped, which was both smart, really smart, but at the same time, your ship got really damaged. And we are left with them unable to travel at warp, unable to jump directly to the location. And they have 6 hours, less than 6 hours, 5 hours to fix it all.
I thought that this part of the storyline was actually going to be parallel to the chase from the next generation, and that Michael, like Picard, was going to give the bad guys the wrong coordinates. And so that's what Picard did, was like, okay, here are the coordinates, and they went into a different direction. No, Michael gave them the whole, not only the coordinates, but the whole puzzle piece. I was like, oh no, it has to work out in the end.
Does it? The episode ends. Like, does it? The season ends after this. Does it have to end on a high note?
Well, Star Trek it usually ends with hope, but I would have written this differently. Also think that they're going to have a tougher time like repairing their ship, as you mentioned, to then catch up to the Breen, who have a much more powerful ship with no damage.
Well, not necessarily catch up. They're still ahead of them, but they said the Breen could catch up in 6 hours. So they have less than 6 hours to beat them.
Oh, I thought they were like 22 light years away from their target. And
yeah, but they were still closer than the Breen.
Okay.
And so that's what she asked Tilly, was it Tilly? She asked someone on the ship, how at maximum warp, how long till they get there? And they said 6 hours. So she was like, okay, you have 5 hours to get it. So they are closer, but they're not there. Like they're still far away.
Yes. So speaking of like asking people on the crew, I appreciate the fact that Reese is like acting captain number 10. We've had so many acting captains. Reese is able to step up. I don't resonate and don't really connect with these new pilots. I feel like they're fillers. I do miss my Detmer and Joanne, and I was hoping they would catch up with them when Discovery returned to headquarters, as Detmer and Joanne were escorting the ISS Enterprise there. It just seems really weird to go through this whole journey for the last 4.5 seasons with the same pilots, and then now they're kind of written off screen. and, and we don't have closure. And I'm more connected with them because I saw Joanne fight in that awesome casino episode and stuff. I'm starting to bet, but that's the way I feel.
I'm with you on Joanne. I never really truly connected with Ditmer, so she can keep escorting that ISS Enterprise back. I'm cool with that. Cool with that. But any final thoughts that you have about this episode? Any predictions or anything like that? What we're going to see in episode 9 and 10?
Oh, definitely mole. And she's not only quick wit, but she knows how to lead without like formal training. She is really observant. Mm-hmm. She has this level of like just understanding the world around and able to adapt really quickly to a situation. She's an opportunist, and Breen, unfortunately, has been giving her quite a few opportunities. So has the Federation. Oh my goodness. They could have stopped this a long time ago. But Mole and I think Michael will meet up because everyone has, not everyone, but these two ships have the coordinates, and their paths are gonna intersect, and I think there's gonna be a big battle.
I predict, I could be very wrong, but I predict that they will bring Lark back, and I feel like Mole and Lark will escape. I do not want them to have any type of redemption story in the eyes of the Federation, in the sense like you're gonna go on a work release program and then we see like them being in the Federation one day. No, I don't want that. I want them to just go back to being Bonnie and Clyde on on a lower level, and like just living out their lives together. Um, I want this episode. I would love for like episode 9, and I would love for everything to be like the big thing in episode 9, and then 10 is like sort of a jump forward to seeing like where things are. Because this episode, even though I know it's not gonna happen that way, even though I know it's gonna be a two-parter, because when it is ever not a two-parter, uh, but like I really want to see Mole and Lark get their like drive off into the sun together. I want them to both be alive. I want them to be like escape by themselves. And then I want to see like them go like full on battle. I want to see like almost movie level Star Trek battle scenes between them and the Breen. I want to see multiple, like I want to see people we haven't like seen in a while from like episode from season 3 and 4 come and fight. Like I want to see this to be like the end of season 4 of, was it 4 of Lower Decks, of where everyone comes, and like I want this to be, because if you're ending the season, if you're ending the entire series in 2 episodes, I want this to be end all be all. I want my socks knocked off. I want to have to watch this episode 10 times because I want to be able, because there's be so much happening that I need to watch it multiple times to see and understand everything. This episode, these last 2 episodes need to bring it. Because if they end this series like they have ended other seasons where I have been let down, I will blow my gasket. So that's my final thoughts. Anything else to add, Malika?
This is a fun ride. I'm really enjoying this. I can't wait to play the next episode right after we log off here.
So on that note, as always, I'm Andrea.
And I'm Anika.
And live long and prosper.